If a library card arrived with your name on it stamped "Overdue 1 hour you never lived," would you go to the address and ask a stranger to give it back? Rita went because the handwriting on the envelope was hers, but younger, the kinds of R's she stopped making after her son was born. 61, retired paramedic, ankles that forecast rain better than the news, a woman who had learned to hold other people's emergencies without setting hers down. She had been sorting through a box of unsent postcards and unthrown receipts when the card slid under her door like a shy animal. On one side, Rita Deleuze. On the other, return to the Hour Library, basement, East Annex, Municipal Museum. A rubber stamp bled through the paper in soft blue. Overdue. 1 hour you never lived. The museum never had a basement as far as Rita knew. It sat on a hill pretending it was older than the city, all echo and marble and school children on field trips. But at dusk she put on her coat and went anyway. Because if a life has taught you anything, it has taught you to follow good weirdness and ignore the bad. The main doors were shut. A side gate, the kind staff used, was ajar by an inch that felt intentional. Down a service corridor, past crates stenciled with numbers, she found a door painted the color of a bruise. A paper sign was thumbtacked crooked. East Annex, lower. She pushed. Basement was a generous word. It was a long room with low ceilings and a smell like rain that didn't quite know where to go. Shelves snaked away into dimness. On those shelves were glass jars with clock hands inside, envelopes addressed to seasons, brass bowls holding loose minutes like coins. A woman sat behind a counter with a stamp pad and a smile that looked as if it had been learned gradually. "Welcome to the Hour Library," the woman said. "I'm Cassia. Your card?" Rita slid it over. Cassia studied it with librarian reverence as if it were a rare map. "Ah," she said, soft with recognition. "An hour you never lived. Most people come for hours they want back. You, though, you've got one the world owes you." "How can the world owe an hour?" Rita asked. "I thought we were supposed to pay up, not get paid out." "You ever spend a day doing everything right and no one remembers to meet you in it?" Cassia said. "Sometimes time forgets to deliver the change." Rita looked at the shelves and felt something like shyness in her ribs. "What is this place, really?" "We lend and return time," Cassia said. "You can check out an hour to visit a day you survived. Observe only, touch nothing, then bring back a decision. Or you can claim an hour that should have been yours and was misplaced. An apology, a conversation, a quiet you earned but couldn't afford. We don't rewrite facts. We annotate courage. There are rules." She turned the card over, in small type. 1 hour per card. 1 listener. 1 witness. Return with a sentence you can live inside. Exchange. Something you don't need but keep carrying. Rita felt the old ache behind her left shoulder blade, the knot that had been her companion since the night her son Lucas slammed the door at 19 and did not come back until 23. They had made small repairs since then, but the seam still pulled. Her mind went to an afternoon when he was 7, the kitchen bright with oranges and comic book pages. He'd asked, "Were you scared today?" After she'd come home late from a call, she had said, "No, I don't get scared," because she thought bravery was a good example. He had learned wrongly that courage was silence. "I want to check out the hour when I taught my boy the wrong thing," she said. "If I can only watch, I can at least watch honestly." Cassia nodded and reached under the counter. She placed a small brass token on the wood, no bigger than a coin, engraved with a door ajar. "Hold this. Close your eyes. Think the day toward you." Rita did. It wasn't hard. The memory had its own keys. The smell of bleach and river mud, the hiss of the kettle. Lucas at the table, legs swinging, braiding rubber bands into a chain. "Were you scared today?" And her, busy, tired, afraid the fear would grow if she fed it. "No." The room shifted like a bus taking a turn you didn't see. When Rita opened her eyes, she was in her old kitchen. The light had the tender patience of late Sunday. She stood, invisible by the refrigerator door. There she was, 30, hair still dyed the color she used to call, "Don't look at me, leaning one hip against the counter as if it were helping. There was Lucas, 7, already learning to hide his weather. He looked up with a face that still believed adults were maps. "Were you scared today?" Rita watched herself lie out of love, watched the boy file away a lesson he'd use against himself later. She wanted to reach through the scene and rearrange it like furniture. The token warmed in her palm, reminder and rule. Observe. Don't edit. Bring back a sentence you can live inside. She looked for what she had missed then. The way Lucas twisted the rubber band when he was about to believe something forever. The way her own jaw moved exactly like her mother's when she said no to softness. She felt the shape of the hour in her bones. A door left closed in a house that needed air. When she came back to the basement, the smell of rain, the bruise-colored door, Cassia had already poured tea. "And your sentence?" the librarian asked. "I can be brave and say I'm scared," Rita said, surprised that the words didn't taste like defeat. "And I can teach other people to be brave by letting them see my knees." Cassia stamped the card with a satisfaction not unlike relief. "Good hour," she said. "What will you exchange?" Rita dug in her bag. For years she carried a rule she told herself was practical but had been mostly fear. If you cry at work, you're not made for the work. She wrote it on a slip. It looked flimsy once it had to hold ink. She slid it into a bowl that said, "Returns." The bowl absorbed it the way soil takes light rain. In her chest, the knot shifted. Not gone, but looser. "What else is on the shelves?" she asked. "Whatever we could borrow from time without making it angry," Cassia said with a grin. "There's a bowl of first minutes, useful for people afraid to start again. We lend those to dance studios on Mondays. There are jars of quiet afternoons, popular in winter, envelopes of unsent goodbyes to give your throat a less expensive job. We have in a locked case 3 summer afternoons that smelled like lemon cake. For truly dire emergencies." Rita laughed. It sounded like her, but at a more human volume. "Most people filter their lives through regrets," Cassia said, tapping a glass jar where small silver motes drifted like dandelion seeds. "We have a different catalog. Hours you used well. Hours that used you up. Hours that were stolen. Hours you did not know were gifts until you stepped out of them. Which kind is your overdue?" Rita thought she was done with the boy in the kitchen, but another hour tapped from the side like a polite ghost. The night her father died, she had sat in his hospital room counting his breaths as if she could invoice the universe later. A nurse had asked if she wanted to call anyone. She had said no because the habit of sparing other people had turned into a reflex she mistook for kindness. She had not called Lucas. She had decided he should be spared what had made her. A week later he had asked why she thought he couldn't take the weight of their family's weather. They had argued softly, the way people do when the real fight is with themselves. "I want the hour that told me I was sparing my son when I was really excluding him," she said. Cassia nodded and handed her the token again. It was warmer now. Memory prefers hands that have already held it. Back in the hospital room, the machines hummed in a key the world uses when it humbles you. Her father slept like a man who had stopped pretending to be taller than he was. Rita sat in a chair that apologized for itself. She could see, like a transparency laid over the scene, the version where she had called her son and said, "Come if you can. Sit with us. Count the freckles on my hand while we wait for the morning to make up its mind." She could also see the version she had chosen, the quiet, heroic solitude of keeping other people safe from grief. It occurred to her that grief does not get smaller when you corner it alone. It folds, grows teeth, and eats the furniture. When she returned, she didn't wait for tea. "My sentence," she said, "is I will not assume love prefers to be spared. I will ask it what it wants to carry." Cassia's stamp said approved as if it could bless. Exchange? Rita took from her bag a different rule, older, rusted. "If I ask, I burden." She wrote it down and fed it to the bowl. The knot behind her shoulder loosened another inch. She rolled her arm, surprised. "This place is ridiculous," she said, smiling. "And useful." "Ridiculous and useful is our favorite aisle," Cassia said. "Do you want to see something most people never ask for?" Obviously. The librarian led her between shelves into a smaller room that felt as if it had been borrowed from a poem. In the center stood a tall cabinet with drawers labeled in pencil. Unlived hours owed. Hours returned with interest. Hours paid forward. She pulled one labeled OED. Inside, arranged on velvet-like jewelry, lay slips of paper tied with red string. We keep track of hours the world meant to give and forgot, like a conversation delayed by a storm, a doctor who did not listen the first time, a train that taught you patience you had already passed the exam for, Cassia said. If you sign for one, you must promise to spend it with ferocity and rest. Not work, not errands, human things. Rita's hand hovered. On one slip, she read her own name and the date of the day she missed Lucas' school play because of a call that ended in a different mother scream. She had decided then that good deeds canceled out absences. This was the hour the world owed her. 40 minutes of applause, 20 of laughing at a joke the children found original as sunrise. A hug in the parking lot where a paper crown would crumple but not break. She signed. How do I spend it? She asked. You call your son, Cassia said. You call anyone you have a chair for. You say, I've got an hour the world forgot. Come eat it with me. You do not apologize for the hour. You do not chores it to death. You put soup on and do not measure the salt with shame. Rita nodded, the way a person nods when a sentence has just placed a floor under them. Anything else? Cassia asked, back at the counter. Our doors close when the museum alarm sets. We pretend we obey schedules. Rita looked at her card. One more line was blank, the one that asked for the decision she'd bring back like a book that had acquired notes in the margins. I'll go call him, she said. And I'll tell him the thing I should have said when he was 7. And I'll ask him the thing I didn't when he was 23. And I'll spend the hour like I mean keeping it. If the line is busy? Cassia asked, all softness, no mockery. I'll leave a message that doesn't manage anybody's feelings. And I'll go sit with my neighbor Donna Lucia who talks to her ficus and pretend I am a plant that needs water and gossip. Return what you don't need, Cassia reminded her, tapping the bowl. Rita dug around in her bag one last time and found a thin, bitter card she'd been carrying for years. I am only useful if I am unbothered by the weight. She wrote it down and fed it to the soil. The room brightened the way rooms do when someone cracks a blind. On her way out, she paused. How do I know I'm not inventing this? She asked, half afraid of the answer. By what you do next, Cassia said, not unkind. Fantasy rarely demands you call your son. Outside, the city had turned its nightlights on. Rita dialed before fear could hold the phone. It rang once, twice. Hey, Mai, Lucas said. In the background, a dog barked twice like a punctuation mark, and a woman laughed. I checked out an hour, Rita blurted, and then they both laughed because there are sentences you only say once. I owe you so many, but I have this one the world forgot. Come eat it with me. Soup. I'll behave. I'll bring bread, he said. 15 minutes. 15 minutes gave her time to open windows and to set the pot on the stove and to take 3 deep breaths that reached parts of her that thought they had been quarantined. She stirred without counting, trusting her wrist to remember what her mother showed it. When the doorbell rang, her heart did the small animal thing hearts do when they recognize the feet on the other side. At the table, she said the sentence she had checked out to live inside. I can be brave and say I'm scared. He picked up the spoon and his eyes, those eyes that had learned to be weather vanes, did a softer kind of turning. What are you scared of? He asked. Wasting this hour trying to hire the future, she said. Wasting it proving I'm unbreakable. He tore the bread. Then don't. They ate. They talked about the dog, the roof that needed patching, the lemon tree that refused to understand winter, the way mornings made coffee taste like promise or punishment. Then she asked the question she had been hoarding. When you left at 19, what did you need me to know? He looked at the steam rising from his bowl as if the answer might be hiding there. That leaving wasn't a verdict, he said. That I wasn't your failure for needing a place where your silence didn't look like strength. That I wanted you to call and ask, do you need me to listen or to come and fix the sink? and that if I didn't answer the first time, you'd try twice. I will try twice, she said. Every time. They set the bowls in the sink and did not rush to wash them. The clock on the oven stuttered and then announced the hour as if it had been more than 60 minutes. He hugged her at the door, the way people hug when they are not rehearsing grief. This was a good hour, he said. We should find where they hide the rest. The basement of the museum, she started, and then stopped herself. Some magic makes a point of being unprovable. At my table, she corrected. Apparently. After he left, Rita stood in the kitchen and waited to see if time would punish her for spending it on soup and sentences. It did not. It did what time does when you finally stop trying to manage it. It walked beside her instead of over her. She returned to the Hour library the next afternoon with her card signed in her own hand, older and steadier. Cassia stamped it and tucked it into a wooden tray where other names waited. A chorus of people who had borrowed and returned and changed the shape of their days. We close at 5, the librarian said. But if you need an hour after, try the supermarket at 6:20. Aisle 5. The fluorescents hum in the same key as the machines in the hospital. If you can be kind to yourself there, you can be kind anywhere. Do I get to keep the token? Rita asked. It stays here, Cassia said, placing it back under the counter. But its warmth doesn't. On the way home, the world revealed its other libraries. The bus stop where a stranger moved their bag so a woman with a limp could sit. The park bench where an old couple argued about whether the pigeons were friend-shaped or nuisance-shaped. The florist who wrote, "You can absolutely keep going" on a card without charging for it. Every hour a shelf. Every shelf a decision. Rita raised her face to the weather and felt, for the first time in years, on time for her own life. Later that week, a postcard slid under her door. It was blank except for a rubber stamp in soft blue. Returned with interest. When she flipped it over, she found a single sentence in her college hand, round and left-leaning. Spend this hour like a person who knows the library is real whether or not the city admits it. She put the card on the fridge under a magnet shaped like a lemon and set water to boil. The phone buzzed. It was Lucas, and then it was her neighbor, Donna Lucia. And then it was a number that used to mean bad news and now meant maybe coffee. Rita said yes to all three in manageable sizes. She ate the hour she was owed the way you eat a peach over the sink, messy, grateful, unafraid of sweetness running down your wrists. And if anyone asked her later whether the Hour library truly exists, she would smile like someone who has learned a secret and a recipe at the same time. It exists the way forks do, the way apologies do when they're not timed like fireworks, the way late afternoons exist when you let them be ordinary and dazzling at once. Down a bruise-colored door or up a staircase that refuses to apologize in a basement that smells like rain, that will eventually decide where to go there. A counter and a stamp pad and a person who knows your name exactly long enough to hand it back to you. Clean. Bring your overdue. Leave your rule. Take your hour home.